And I call the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 2014 is the year that Tony Abbott wants us to forget. That's right. Unfortunately, this is a year which Australians will remember for the rest of their lives. The proposition which I advance today as a matter of public importance is this is not what the Prime Minister says is a year of achievement, laughable as that is. This has been a year of underachievement from a government who has let the Australian people down. Yeah. Every government gets elected with the goodwill of the Australian people, but no government has burnt its bridges so quickly. When we think back to 12 months ago, the Treasurer had goaded Holden into going, losing thousands of jobs, and now we find out it was so he could clear the decks for a free trade agreement. But the list of job losses in this country is far longer than just Holden. Rio at Gove, Toyota, Alcoa, Forge in Western Australia. Thousands of more jobs in smaller businesses and manufacturing, defence construction, the renewable energy industry at risk. And when the Australian people were beginning to worry this year, at the start of this year, about the issue of jobs, sadly confirmed in the last few days by the national accounts figures and unemployment numbers, we discovered in March of this year that the Prime Minister's plan for jobs was to come up with that idea of knights and dames. It has been a most extraordinary year. It was funny. But just for the record, the Labor Party will have no problems debating this policy curly question at our national conference. We oppose the imperial honours system since 1916. Today is the end of a shocking week in a dreadful year of a terrible government. This bunch opposite behave in a dishonest fashion. They have no fidelity between their election promises and what they do in government. They are out of touch, a point I will come back to, and clearly they are incompetent. And let's think about 2014, some of the earlier months of this year, because the problem with this government is an embarrassment of riches to oppose, and every week of problems makes you almost, maybe it's a cunning strategy by the government, to make bigger blunders the following week so you forget about their blunders the previous week. But remember the Commission of Audit. That a good document, a good member for Kooyong says, indeed it was their plan B. Well, they put it out before they put out plan A. But I do not expect a single Victorian Liberal member to be saying it's a good document, because at least when it came to defending their Senate position in Western Australia, defending the Liberal Party in South Australia and indeed Tasmania, the Commission of Audit, they sat on it and sat on it and sat on it so as not to compromise their electoral chances. They did not show that same courtesy to the former jewel in the Liberal crown, Victoria. They couldn't wait in the first week. They thought, "Dear Dennis, just before I come down and hug you, I want to put a petrol tax on." Of course, though, when you look at the issue of underachievement, no discussion of the underachievement of this government can possibly go without looking at who gets the trophy in the member of this gang for the biggest underachiever. Possibly the Minister for Foreign Affairs gets the top banana. Easily the best performed woman in the Abbott cabinet. She's going so well that the PMO's decided to make her take excess baggage to Lima, the Minister for Trade. Joe Hockey, what a year he's had. Two great publications. He launched a budget and he launched his book. It's hard to know which one his colleagues liked more. Then, of course, we've had his John Farnham-style tour, trying to one more time sell his rotten budget. And we'll never forget the gig he had with Jackie Lambie. That didn't end so well. And, of course, Joe Hockey has memorably given us the arguments that the strong economic reformers need. Memorably. A GP tax? Well, that's just a couple of beers. That line worked. Pensioners have never had it so good. Wouldn't go there again, Joe. And don't worry about the petrol tax, because poor people don't drive cars. But, of course, in the other house there are some contributors. Senator Brandis. Two noteworthy contributions. The right to be a bigot, memorable. And then there was that interview on metadata. That was possibly the most awkward bit of television since the 70-second staring competition the Prime Minister had with Mark Riley. Then, of course, we've got old charm offensive himself, Senator Abbott. More offence than charm. He bobs up on the project. That must have been a setup. I've heard the expression first-time guest, but he was a first-time viewer. And he gave us some 1950s medical science. Then there's the Minister for Environment, whose own title is a sheer example of irony. He's defended the Antarctic walrus, the Tasmanian tiger, and any other animal he finds on Wikipedia. Of course, there's the Minister for Immigration, working relentlessly on Operation Self-Promotion, that mission. And then there's the Minister for Communications. He's cutting the ABC and SBS. I think it might be time to hang up that leather jacket, Malcolm. And speaking of communicators, there is Christopher Pyne. He's been texting in his CV to be the Minister for Communications, or perhaps the Minister for Unsolicited Communications. And this is the mob who wants to put the adults back in charge. Now, of course, 2015 promises to be a potential follow-on from this year of underachievement. Will Senator Johnson be the Minister for Defence? Will he keep his rhetorically flourishing canoe up his unparliamentary creek? We do know what Stuart Roberts cheering for. Will Barnaby Joyce visit Shepparton? Or has he wiped it off his mental map like Whyalla? And of course there's the longest position vacant stint. Will we have an Assistant Treasurer again in Australia? Now, of course, we look then promisingly at the contenders. So, there's the member for Kooyong, there's the cop from Kooyong, there's the member for Moncrieff, or that fast-finishing country thoroughbred, the member for Wannon. Now, the issue is that all of this would be even funnier if it wasn't true. Australia cannot afford a year like the one that's just passed. Yeah. We cannot afford to have unemployment at 6.2% when Labor left it at 5.7%. We cannot afford to have a 13-year high in youth unemployment, now at 14%. 42,000 more unemployed people around the country following the government's damaging budget. We certainly can't afford to have another year of the Prime Minister's broken promises. Australians are better than this government. Australians deserve better than this government. We need a government with a vision and a plan for a future, not a drift, both domestically and internationally. Labor in 2014 standing strong for fairness. We've been standing very strong, defending Medicare, fighting for the families, under pressure from increased cost of living. We're fighting for a fair pension, and we will keep fighting until we make sure that your cuts don't go through. The dignity in retirement, we believe, is a birthright of all Australians. And yes, despite faux mini-me Churchill on the other side, we will keep fighting in terms of the government's unfair changes to universities. In 2015, throughout the course, we'll outline our plan for the future, a plan for inclusive growth, a smart, skilful and fair Australia. We do not believe that growth and fairness are mutually irreconcilable. In fact, each drives the other. We certainly cannot afford to have the destruction of confidence that we see. The national account figures yesterday are a most concerning development. This government has slammed us into an income recession. We are dangerously reliant on iron ore and our minerals, with very little else in our economy to help us. We are seeing wages and profits contract in this country under this government. How long will this government keep blaming everything and everyone else for their inability to do their day job? We have seen higher taxes under this government. Even some of the blue blood supporters of the Liberal Party surely are not excited by the fact that they now pay over 50 cents in the dollar in their taxation because of this government. And no one, above all no one, believes in their multi-millionaire paid parental leave scheme. I know secretly, in the beating hearts of the government, they desperately want us to succeed in convincing the Prime Minister to drop that unloved scheme of his. And then when we look at the real challenges of next year, under this government they have doubled the deficit and all the projections are looking grim. They are looking grim. And they have colluded with the Greens. To extend the credit card. They may laugh. They probably don't even know what their leader's doing. They may not know. They are cutting public investment. What I can say to Australians, and the reason why we regard it as a matter of public importance to debate the underachievement of this year, is I don't believe there's a single Australian who's not disappointed by the Abbott government, from their conservative boosters right through the spectrum of Australian opinion. We understand on this side that growth comes from extending opportunity, through making sure kids can go to uni, right through to pensioners get a fair deal. And we will promote this next year.
Order.